A lot of these anime piracy sites are starting to get attacked for a lot of the reasons that we could pretty much expect. They do not like it when they sail the seven seas and then become Jack Sparrow or Luffy. It very much messes with a lot of people, mainly company people. And when it comes down to it, it kind of just like every time I see, a piracy site get taken down, whether you're for it or not for it, I kind of feel like it's like, dang, that's just another way of our options just being limited as to how we consume media, right? And just to keep it very much a stack, right? If there was a full, straight up good legal way to get everything that you need and just have it in a proper place of things, then cool, I'm here for it. But a lot of the time, that's not what you get in a lot of these companies, right? Like Crunchyroll, for example, their site, if we're gonna be honest, is not the best UI site of all time. It only has, certain anime, and let's just be honest, when it comes down to certain versions of said anime, they will go out their way to extra censor it, or they'll just choose and pick which version of that censorship do you get. And that's a bit unfair. Just to remind people again, the Takamine anime basically went out their way to have 3 different versions of that show, and then only for a fair amount of episodes, they're like, yeah, we'll give you the uncensored version, but then something like episode 3, then they decide to be like, yeah, we'll do the less censored version, so you can't see everything that you really would like to see, instead of just giving you the 3 options of just watching 3 versions of that show and then just seeing the censored, less censored, and then the uncensored version. Again, it's very weird. I just do not care for streaming services taking away essentially the options to watch something else that is out there. And unfortunately, there sometimes is just no straight up normal way to go find a lot of this stuff either, right? Because there's certain anime that just only is available via the censorship option when it comes down to a lot of these platforms. But then that's where some like high anime, where that will come in, and then you can go find the actual uncensored, fully real deal original version of that show. And that's just kind of like the only way to go get it. Because if a service is that good, you would pay for that, right? You legit would. Or at least more people would than actually just, go out their way to pirate the damn thing. Especially if it's a good thing and they want to keep it going, right? And then at the very same time, looking at something like Crunchyroll with how limiting the options can be, how honestly lacking of a service they are at times. It just it's a bit weird. It's a bit crazy. But at the very same time, as I said before, like I said with the gaming industry and like I said with the anime industry, the reason why a lot of the stuff is a bit crap and it's not necessarily as good as it should be is because you got corporate suits running the business. You got corporations doing the things. You got people that are pencil pushers and calculator users and all that sort of stuff, numbers people to run these businesses, where they're not necessarily people that watch the product or care about the product, versus people that genuinely do like anime, do like putting their passion into the very much thing that they care about, right? And that's why something like a high animation or high anime, I don't know why I add animation today, but a high anime site like that, or in other sites of the sort, like maybe Manga decks or whatever, they have a better production of a site than what you would get from Crunchyroll or any other actual legal site that's out there. Which kind of is crazy, because it's just like, bro, how you mean to tell me fans are able to create things way better, way more resourceful than what $1 billion company can do, right? It's like you can probably find fans to do something for cheap, and it's easy and it's more accurate than having like a whole company to do something that a simple fan will be able to do in 5 seconds. But again, that is just how passion is played. If you have passion in something, then you're obviously going to care about it, and you're obviously going to want to have that out there for people to see, and you could do it way better than whatever a corporation could possibly do. But all this leads me to basically talk about another major point about a lot of the piracy sites and whatever that's been getting under attack or being put on the watch list or all this sort of stuff. And that has to do with anime preservation. Now, I am fully aware that, in Japan, you got one of the people in the Diet, Ken Akamatsu, to have like their whole anime archive and preservation and, trying to get certain things into that archive or whatever. And that's cool. That's perfectly fine. And that's great, saving like original manuscripts and whatever. But my kind of thinking has always been the reason why I think piracy sites are really good at times is because there is old shows that you can't find on any service whatsoever. And it's like if you're trying to find a certain show or a certain thing, you can't really go get it, right? Or a certain version of that show, you can't really go get that in a Crunchyroll or a Hulu or Netflix or whatever is out there, because the full library of these shows is just impossible to go get. Much less, there's a lot of money to go get when it comes down to purchasing the license just to air these shows on your streaming services, right? Realistically, I don't think there will ever be a service where every single anime in existence is in that one place. And especially with new shows to kind of come out, like, there's not really, many ways of how a streaming service today could deadass go back to the past and just be like, yeah, look, we could just grab up every single license. Plus, the amount of money you would have to spend just to get all those shows just to be on the streaming service, it's still a lot of money to kind of be thrown out, right? And that's where piracy sites kind of come in, and that's why it's helpful to have them there, because sometimes you might discover shows that you didn't even know existed until you went on a site like that, or you went in a scene, something like that, So honestly, they preserve anime in a way better way than what a lot of these other corporations and business people do. Which, granted, it makes sense because, their whole goal is to make money and get the latest and new thing and the popular thing and make money off of that, instead of trying to find old stuff that no one cares about outside of the very niche and few people, right? And that's just ultimately how it is. And to be honest, I won't even cap. There's a lot of shows where if it wasn't for the other method, I wouldn't have seen, much less have known about, if, we had to go through a whole Crunchyroll or something of the sort like that. Because I would not have seen Watsumote and, have dealt with that whole show if it wasn't for the fact that I saw it somewhere else. Like, let's just keep it very much a set. I think we all remember the days where YouTube had anime on it and then it had broken up in parts, and we all seen stuff like that. That's how I watched Watsumote. It was trash to watch it that way, but it was what it was. It was still fun, it was still good, and I enjoyed the hell out of what I was watching, right? But that's just kind of how it is, though. If you go onto a website now, there's a chance that it might be there, and it's a chance that Watsumote might not be there, right? And that just kind of is a sad thing, certain shows from the 90s, much less like really not popular shows from those point in time, like early 2000s or 90s, they might not exist in the way that they should, and the only way you can go find those things is by going to find something like a high anime site and just go ahead and just do it that way. But my whole point of what I'm trying to get at is that, trying to preserve anime, manga, or whatever is something that fans do very well. And honestly, I don't see, well, granted, legally we get why it's not possible, why you can't do it, but like, it should be in some shape or form just kept up somewhere, right? Because let's just be real, the only times we'll really get to see old stuff kind of being preserved is by fans' hands, and we already know any company that wants to do that is not going to, unless they're going to pay like a hell of a lot of money just to sit there and preserve stuff, right? And this is kind of, and really preservation for me is like really important, because it's like we need to keep track of what has been and what was there, right? We might overlook certain things because of the old shows of the past. That's kind of how I feel about online games a lot too, is that you can't really preserve it once the game is done, and it kind of sucks unless they decide to go back and modify it for offline play. But even then, it's like, how do you go about something like that? Because that's a lot to fix up, change, and all that sort of stuff, even though it'll be a damn shame to waste a good world or a good bunch of characters because it was like an online experience that you could only play while it was active online. That's just kind of how it was, and essentially that's kind of how I feel about this too, because if we're gonna be real, something like the manga of the 80s, as we talked about before on the channel, like the Lolicon boom or whatever, that shit is hard to kind of come across like anything new of that whole era, because yeah, you can find some stuff on doujinshi sites, but most of the time you can't really sit there and go find that stuff like you regularly would, because no one really sat there and preserved it, much less there's a lot of people back then, a lot of creators from back then that got their careers from that time period that worked in that stuff. Essentially just throw it out the window. Don't really think about it too much. Just try to act like it didn't happen, even though it clearly has happened. You drew a lolly in some diapers or some panties or whatever, and then do some weird shit. Like we've seen that it is there. It's probably the inspiration for a ton of different anime that is out now, but ultimately there is not much to preserve on that subject, right? And that's another reason why it's important to keep it around, to kind of know how everything started up, how everything kind of was, honestly, you know? I just personally feel like these type of things in history should be preserved in some shape or form, and it's crazy how it's not able to just do so, right? I find it kind of crazy how actually keeping certain shows alive or viewable or whatever is like a crime half the time, and it's just like, bro, we just want to make sure that shit don't disappear, or people have to pay like a ridiculous amount of money just to get the shit back again, right? That just ultimately how it is. So yeah, anytime I see these piracy sites kind of go down, it kind of is just like, this is not great to a point, because it's just like, well, I understand why they would do it. Obviously, it's their work. I ain't gonna sit here and say, oh, you can't just take it down, because even if you own it or whatever, because that's just how it is. But still, I wish they would also kind of consider that, you know, leave some sites around, because it's just like, well, are we realistically going to go back and look at every piece of anime ever? No, we're not going to. So that's just how it is, right? So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow on socials. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until then, this is your boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.